Hey everyone, this is week 22, day 3. This is Wednesday, and this is our ongoing when to stop week. So, for the past few days, we've been asking ourselves if we're able to let a painting be, to leave it be at a stage where we can actually learn a ton from it. And it may not look like the paintings that we usually do, but it doesn't matter. We're granting ourselves the right to just leave them at a very initial stage just so that we can soak in all that they have to offer to us in that initial stage. So we'll see how we do today. Okay, let's get started. We continue our week of when to stop. And disclaimer, if you are looking for very objective, quantifiable answers on when to stop a painting, you can stop watching. You can stop watching because we are not going to reach a magical answer, a blanket answer that can serve everyone's purpose, because that is not what this week is about. Like I've been saying for the past 2 days, what we are trying to do during this week is grant ourselves the opportunity to work on a painting and leave it. Now, we're not just going to abandon our painting. We are not going to forget about our painting. We're not going to run away from the responsibilities that are framed within our painting, that originate from our painting. No, this is not cowardice, like I said on Monday. This is not about us avoiding the things that we have to do always as painters. This is about seeing a stage of a painting that we very much so relate with an initial moment of a painting and saying, there is enough goodness in here, there is enough raw power in here that I am going to leave it be. We are doing so because we want the painting to serve us as a reminder of that big raw energy that characterizes an initial block in the initial way you attack a painting. Even though we might be used to just formally developing a painting through different and various stages, even though we may understand ourselves as indirect painters, even though we technically see a block in as an unfinished painting, we are going to not just put those paintings to the side, but we are going to consciously grant ourselves the right to say, I want to leave this painting at this stage and I want to learn from it at this stage. Why are we doing this? Because many times we become accustomed to ourselves and to our techniques, and if we are always executing the same manner of painting and we're imposing that onto our paintings, we many times kind of fly over something that is very, very beautiful and wonderful that is going on in a painting, but because our sights are set so forward in the development of the painting, we are blind to those things that are happening at the beginning stages of the painting. This is just a reminder that there are wondrous moments in a painting, and we honestly are the ones who can determine if those moments are the ones we are going to deem as necessary to fulfill the act of trying to resolve our intentions, because that is the real conclusion of a painting. It's not about the ability to get into really fine detail. It has nothing to do with the amount of specificity in the information that you are depicting. It has nothing to do with what the paint layer looks like. It has everything to do with you having an intent and then feeling that you got very, very close to what you wanted to say initially, to what you wanted to state when you started a painting. If you feel that the openness of a painting is actually beneficial to the way that intent is being presented and then the way the observer can read that intent in turn, then you can leave that painting at that very moment. And this is going to be just 1 week. What's going to happen if we do this with 5 paintings? The nature of what we do is not going to change, or maybe it is. That would be an amazing thing if this exercise had that power over us. But ultimately, it's about seeing things where we once were blind. Moments of our painting that we neglected, and we are putting a spotlight on them, and we are telling them they are deserving of our time, they are deserving of our reflection. Now, formally, this doesn't require the painting to be executed in a specific way. On Monday, it was about doing a very kind of chunky block in, something that was very, very direct. It was about the big masses of color trying to describe how the planes were turning, and hopefully all those single brushstrokes, those kind of tiles of paint at the end would configure form, would configure a portrait that has enough character that the character can actually put that weight on its shoulders and say, okay, this is a finished painting because it's transmitting, it's expressing feeling, sentiment. So it doesn't really matter if it's executed hastily or if it has a degree of simplicity. If we reach that humanity that lies in character, then that is going to carry it forward. On yesterday, I wanted to do something that is kind of close to what we're doing today, which is about navigating the quality that we can get from invoking line work and then invoking big masses of color. Those two things seemingly kind of push and pull your painting towards different sides. But what they're doing when you are making them almost like fight each other, they try to push each other so that they can find a space where they can express. They are kind of feeling each other out. They each have a role to play, but they can actually be nice to each other. They can play nice. And whenever they're in contact with each other, each of them is not trying to be the protagonist of the painting. They are actually aiding each other. And I felt with Fer's portrait yesterday, I was able to strike really nice, fresh balance between those two. I know I always express it as if it was something very organic, but it was almost like breathing. It's almost like inhaling, exhaling, and how the two of them can find a common ground and can find equilibrium with each other. Now, I felt yesterday's painting was about this very free-flowing oscillation between mass and line. And today, I wanted to push a little bit more. I wanted the painting to have a more impasto feeling, the body of the paint to be a little more evident. Even though this painting does have a lot more body than the one I did yesterday, I noticed that I started thinking about a painter that I don't necessarily equate with full-bodied paint. When I was doing this painting of Samu sleeping, I remembered a painting of Harvey Dunn. I think it was a very quick sketch he had done of a model. I have to say, I almost bought that painting. It was like $1,000 at the Illustration House back in, I don't know, 2000 in New York. And I almost bought it. I really wish I could have bought it because I loved it. As soon as I saw that painting, I was blown away. I thought it was just the most beautiful, fresh sketch that I had ever seen. And I've always had that in my mind. I've always had this little painting, this little sketch in my mind. I've just associated it all my life with just insanely raw energy. I always have that reminder, and in terms of execution, in terms of formal execution, I'm sure that the painting that I'm doing right now is more reminiscent of that Harvey Dunn sketch that I've had etched in my brain for 20 years now. But this is the cool part about painting. Sometimes the superficial qualities of a painting don't really matter. In a way, if I'm painting with thick paint, with full-bodied paint, it doesn't mean that I always have to think of Lucian Freud or Frank Auerbach. No, I don't have to equate it with painters that just pile paint on. That is a very basic way of forming relationships with the physical qualities of your painting, but that doesn't mean that you have to only generate those relationships. So I thought of a painter that I actually really like, who is Patrick George. And Patrick George is a far more sensitive painter than I am. You can really get a feeling of his sensibility. And his paintings would go from very transparent washes to masses of color that looked like fuller masses of color when compared to those very subtle transparencies. But overall, a lot of his paintings were just very subtle, very sensitive. And I find that incredibly amazing because I think it has a touch that I don't have. I've always described my hands as being very heavy. And I think that is quite evident in today's painting where I struggled. I wanted to be very bold with Samu's head, with the gesture of his head. And I think I had something at the beginning that I sort of lost while I kept on painting, and that I eventually found again nearing the end of the painting. But it was very frustrating for me, and I think that you're going to notice that I end up just putting a ton of energy into that head and almost forgetting about everything else that was surrounding Samu's portrait, which is not a good thing to do. When that happens, we should always just step back and say, okay, let me paint everything that is surrounding this form that I am just, sweating over. And let's see if all those decisions that are surrounding this form that is requiring a ton of my effort to paint, let me see if they can give me hints into how to paint it. Sometimes, I'm not going to say every time, but many, many times, they give you enough clues as to how to approach that moment of the painting. In this particular painting was a portrait that is giving you a hard time. So I know consciously that I should have gone for my other areas, but I just kept whacking at it. And I really felt a ton of frustration because I was aware of having something that I liked at the beginning, that because I wanted to be bold, I just painted over it. I just literally painted over all those sensible decisions that I noticed I had in the first maybe 20, 30 minutes of the painting. That act, the act of just stepping over all the cool things that I had done initially, reminded me of Patrick George. The fact that I sometimes just don't have the patience, I don't have the sort of peace of mind to understand that if something is frustrating me, I should try to look in my tool set for ways of solving that problem. It could be by measuring the crap out of everything, just double checking, triple checking every mark I do by measuring everything. And this is something that annoys me a little bit about myself. I have stopped measuring. I do measure quite a bit, but I measure while I am doing my mark making. I don't measure prior to my mark making. So as I'm doing my marks, I am very conscious that I am comparing forms to each other. But because I have, I guess, confidence in the way I draw, many, many times that confidence betrays me and it leads me to paths where I can't just rely on my expressiveness. I can't just rely on this instinct that I have to draw. Sometimes it's just like, hey, dude, you have to measure this. You have to really check your structure. You have to take your time. Ugh. And that kills me. That really, really kills me because I really feel like there's a teacher inside of my brain just looking down on me and saying like, dude, no. You're not that good. You're not above all this. You have to take your time. And that is something that is not natural to me, just having that patience. I think that there's a real reason that I am incredibly attracted to the work of Lopez and Coldstream and Uglo and Patrick George, who really honestly deserves a ton of credit. People go so far as to say that Uglo stole a lot of Patrick George's manners of approaching subject matter. And maybe so. I mean, they were friends, they knew each other, so he probably learned a lot from George, and he probably took that, I don't want to say further, but took it into a different direction, while George was just a very, very sensitive man, and probably his manner of painting just wasn't really as bold as Uglo could be, and that's totally fine. They were just two very, very different painters. But I don't know if it's unfair to say that Uglo kind of stole the spotlight from George, but he probably got a lot of attention that George also deserved. So let's say it like that. When I see those people that can be very obsessive compulsive about measuring and about just understanding objectively how shapes are relating to each other, I always feel like, wow, that is incredible. Like, I would love to do that. But then my brain goes like, yeah, but no. I am not that type of painter, and I don't have that personality. You really need a very, very special personality to paint that way. And I know that I am not that person. Even though this painting is taking me to a different direction, I think that what it is reminding me of is that I lack something that is very much present in George's work. While I'm painting a painting like this one, I yearn for those things. I really do. I wish I had just a little more patience. But the soul of this exercise was actually pushing me forward and was begging me to just be bold and just to attack the painting. Oof. These two forces that are pulling your arms on two separate directions, because one, my inner voice, my more calm voice is telling me, dude, slow down. if you don't slow down, you will never be able to access the gesture and the quality of the pose of this head, this tipped over head that's kind of burrowed in this pillow. But then the other side is telling me, attack fearlessly the painting. Attack, attack, attack. You can simplify, simplify, simplify. And ooh, that balance was tough. And because I want this week's paintings to be about freshness and to achieve that freshness and then just let it be, I almost had to split my brain in two and say, okay, you guys work it out. I have to find common ground. Like the common ground I found yesterday with Fer's painting, where line and mass were just kind of feeling each other out. Today, it was about these two forces that were trying to understand the place they had in the painting. And it was a struggle. I thought it was a very tough painting to paint for me. But as with everything, I think in the end, I just battled through it and I got it to a place where I was like, okay, this feels good. This feels like a painting that I can be happy with and I can be satisfied with. And there's enough just raw input in there that makes me feel like there is freshness and there is an honesty to my mark making that I feel like is at the core of what we're trying to do this week. Even though it's very tough to just see myself struggling and see myself almost yearning for something that I just don't naturally have, I had to accept the qualities that I do have and rely upon them to just fight through the moments that were tough in the painting and just get it to a place where I could feel, yeah, okay, this feels like one of my paintings, because I'll never be able to paint like Uglo or George or anyone else but me. So I just took it to the place where I was like, okay, this is my painting now. And I am comfortable with this right now. And it feels exactly like a painting that I would leave at this moment. My whole body was clenched through the painting of this painting. And I knew that I could just leave it there because I felt my body relax. It wasn't just my body surrendering. It wasn't just me saying, I just can't do better. I just don't know what I'm doing. Forget it. I'll redraw it tomorrow and that's it. No, this was about feeling all that pressure. And then when you feel the release, it's because you know you've reached a good place. And when I felt that, I was like, okay, I'm done. That was the point of doing this exercise. I just didn't know that I was going to suffer through it so much. I really like that even though the paintings are being constructed with the same frame of mind, the result that I'm getting with Monday's painting of Jonathan and Tuesday's painting of Fer and today's painting of Samu, they are very different. They feel very different. But I think the DNA they share is that raw initial energy. And that's what we're looking for during this week. So I'm very happy that I got there. It was a lot of sweating, a lot of swearing, but we got there. So that was it for today. Join me tomorrow where I'm going to try to do something I think very, very different from the first three paintings. And we'll see how that goes. It's probably going to be a disaster, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.